Loops 47. 47.1, Oracle Mask. Rainbow Dash yawned and stretched out her wings. She'd awoken into a wintry world, though what could be seen through the blizzard seemed awfully familiar. For some reason her loop self had been sleeping in a tree instead of on a cloud. She got a funny reading when Dash checked the element of loyalty. Only Twilight was awake, except, not here yet? That was different. Hadn't Twilight mentioned a few loops where Celestia or Luna had awoken way before Twilight had entered the loop? Cool. I guess I'll take a look around. Where am I anyway? Not far away was a miserable-looking village. Vaguely familiar, but Dash couldn't place it. Dash could see it was full of earth ponies, all of whom were struggling to work their farms, but with the sheer volume of snow coming down that was impossible. All their crops were looking more like ice sculptures in the snow. She snorted. Some pony had scheduled a blizzard over this town right in the middle of summer. Well, Dash would soon fix that. It was Philly's play for Dash to corral the storm into one spot. Feeling the eyes of the village on her, Dash couldn't resist showing off. She tore into the heart of the storm, and unleashed a sonic rain boom to blast it apart. She made a big show about hunting down the last clouds before coming in for a landing in the middle of the village. Most of the ponies were looking at her like she was a timber wolf, but one mare stepped forward cautiously after a minute. "You got rid of the snow?" the mare asked. "Of course I did," Dash replied. "You guys needed the help. I'd never leave ponies hanging." The other ponies started whispering amongst themselves. None of the other Pegasus ponies ever bother with moving the snow. "Not without demanding half our crops first," the mare said. Now that it was sunny, Dash was able to see the town a lot more clearly. And she could recognize why it looked so familiar. It was right out of that hearts-warming Eve play they'd put on in Canterlot. "Oh yeah," Dash said. "Well, you know what I think about that. Asterisk, and then they made you their leader." Twilight blinked. "Yep." As soon as Twilight had awoken, she'd realized something was up. Dash had appeared not long after and explained the whole thing, but Twilight was still confused. "Even though you weren't an earth pony?" "Yet." It confused the frond out of Platinum and Hurricane at the summit. Dash grinned. "And is that related to why Equestria is not an Equestria?" Twilight added, waving a hoof at the unfamiliar landscape surrounding them. "Nah, that was Cookie's idea. I just kept the skies clear, she did all the hard parts. I abdicated the position of most awesome boss of Earth ponies to her." "By abdicated, you mean snuck off, ascended, and had a 1,000-year nap, right?" "Same thing. / 47.2, Master Weaver. Greetings every pony, and welcome to Loops 101. Now then." Twilight Sparkle picked up a piece of chalk, glanced at the chalkboard, and smiled. A moment later, both went sailing away. The unicorn pulled a small metal disc out of thin air and tossed it to the ground, tapping it briefly, and suddenly there was a strange see-through bush tree hovering and slowly rotating in front of the group. Most of you have already got the basic story from me or my friends, so this will be more a question and answer session than an actual lecture. So, recap, we're stuck in a time loop because the multiverse is broken and the people in charge don't want it to break any further while they're fixing problems. She flicked her hoof and the image changed to a simple line, with a picture of the moon on the left and a purple alicorn silhouette on the right. The loop we're in generally starts right before the summer sun celebration and it used to end around the time of my coronation, but recently enough damage was fixed that it started to expand out beyond that by about a week every 500 loops or so. With another gesture, Twilight generated a number of parallel lines, some shorter than the marked Equestria line but most far longer. Loops in other universes can range anywhere from a year to whenever everyone dies in length. If you're awake, check your loop memories as soon as possible and try to discreetly find the local anchor and other loopers while retaining as much of your pre-awake self as you deem appropriate. You're each going to be partnered up with a looper you knew in the baseline to guide you through this loop, but there's no guarantee that they'll be awake in your next loop or that you'll even be in Equestria. She turned to Spike, standing off to the side. How was that? Actually pretty good. You managed to keep your rambling down to 10 minutes. Oh ha ha ha. Twilight rolled her eyes, then turned back to the group with a smile. Equestria's been declared a sanctuary loop for anybody that ends up here, a respite in all the insanity of the multiverse. Of course, we can't help others if we don't look after our own. If you ever need anything, just ask. And speaking of asking, now is the perfect time for any questions you might have. Instantly there was a flurry of raised hooves. / 47.3, Master Weaver. You know, Twilight, I'm pretty sure one of the Trek anchors was here last loop, Fluttershy said softly. Really? The unicorn shelved a final book and turned around with a big grin. Did you get any evidence? Oh, no, sorry. I was, too busy dealing with the new expansion period. The Pegasus waved a hoof. You weren't awake and I was curious how you'd deal with that bat infestation in the baseline, so I went for a vanilla handling of things. Twilight nodded with a sigh. I guess I can't blame you. I'd be curious too. What ended up happening? Oh, you turned me into a vampire. ... What? / 47.4. Twilight cleared her throat, just as Nightmare Moon finished her "Night will last forever" speech. Hem. Nightmare turned. Yes, my new subject. The unicorn held up her old soft toy. Smarty Pants doesn't like you. Is that some kind of fool's toy? Nightmare Moon asked, glaring down at it. Then she tossed her head. And why should I care? Answer soon, or your insolence will be punished. Twilight hovered Smarty Pants over to her ear, and moved it in little jerks. What's that, Smarty Pants? You think she should be nicer to you? Lowering the toy, Twilight shrugged. Well, you heard her. Are you soft in the head? Nightmare asked incredulously. Several of the ponies in the audience were nursing the same suspicions. More pantomiming. Smarty Pants thinks you should apologize. Twi, are you all right? Spike asked quietly. Me? Twilight nodded. I'm fine. It's Smarty Pants who's taunting the dark goddess. Twilight broke off, and consulted Smarty Pants again. Oh, I see. You can take her? Go ahead, then. Twilight's horn glow vanished, and a green witch fire instead spread over Smarty Pants. The toy's eyes began to glow in several colors. What is this? Nightmare Moon asked, backing unconsciously. Stop it. I'm not doing anything, Twilight protested. Smarty is, though, and she doesn't like you. The toy turned to Twilight. Nightmare lashed out with a spell, which crashed into the green aura and vanished. The toy turned back to her for a moment, then faced Twilight and wiggled for a few seconds. Smarty Pants is very cross, Twilight announced. Smarty faced Nightmare Moon, and fired a beam of rainbow light. Twilight giggled. Best prank in 100 years. Admittedly, shrinking the rainbow of light from the Gen 1 loop down so it would fit inside Smarty Pants had been tricky. But the payoff was hilarious. Especially since, at Twilight's calm insistence, the stuffed toy had been the one honored for defeating Nightmare Moon. She'd explained that the lack of movement was because Smarty Pants was tired. Celestia had just looked confused. Now, dealing with Discord should be interesting. / 47.5. Silver Spoon looked around, slowly at first but then with increasing confusion. Where am I? This isn't my bedroom. A clanking sound issued from behind her. Oh, great, came a voice she recognized as that of Twilight Sparkle. Hold on, I think I know where we are. Silver turned, nearly tripping as two of her legs felt strangely numb, only to come face to face with A mechanical pony. A unicorn, actually. And so much larger than her that she felt she was standing next to one of the princesses. The riveted steel construction face hoofed with a clang, and sighed. Sorry, I'm not doing this right. You're Silver Spoon, aren't you? Why yeah, Silver stammered. Where am I? Well, I'm going to need to check. I hate loops where I'm made of metal, but I'm fairly sure that we're in the world of Full Metal Alchemist. Silver blinked. I understood maybe 4 of those words. Twilight crouched down, bringing her closer to Silver's height. This is one of those things I called a fused loop. In this case, we're in the place of the main loopers of another world. Think of it like we're the main characters of a story. Reaching into, nowhere in particular, she produced a set of books and slapped them down on the sand. We've got a couple of days before we need to be anywhere in particular, so we can get you properly accustomed to the situation. I don't understand, Silver said weakly. Don't worry, you will. Twilight's metal mouth creaked in what was probably a smile. Oh, you might have heard us mentioning loop memories before? Try to let them do the thinking for your first time, it'll be easier. Silver gulped, and tried to remember them talking about that. It was strange. There were her real memories, the ones she was used to having, with her family and her friends in Equestria, and the strange, still new experience of time looping. And then there was a whole new set of memories, where she was a young filly, learning the ways of alchemy, and she gasped, looking down at her numb-feeling legs. As she'd abruptly realized, they were artificial. Then she looked at Twilight. Are we sisters? Here, I mean. That's right. Twilight nodded. I'm actually the younger sister, or supposed to be. And she stopped. I'm sorry, by the way. It looks like the script took your mother as the template instead of mine. Tears started in Silver's eyes. I know this must all be overwhelming, Twilight said gently. Some anchors wouldn't be pleasant, it's true they're from worlds less nice than Equestria, and their attitude to others can be a bit sink or swim. But I promise you, I'll only stand back unless you want my help. The moment you say so, this becomes about keeping you safe. Silver sniffed. Thanks. She paused, and remembered that conversation with Gilda. Let me guess, you feel like your buddy left you behind? I'll give it a go. That's the spirit. Twilight nodded to her. Again, though, if you need help then just ask. Asterisk, you must be the Silver Alchemist, a hassled-looking unicorn said to Twilight. Twilight shook her head. No, I'm her sister. That's the Silver Alchemist. What am I, invisible or something? Silver grumbled. Oh, I didn't see you down there, Squirt, the unicorn apologized. Silver exhaled hard. Is the short jokes thing going to keep happening? All signs point to yes, I'm afraid, Twilight said. Asterisk right. Silver winced at the damage to her remaining foreleg, which was coming close to laming her, and let the increasingly familiar local experiences help her ride out the pain. Twilight? Quick question. Yes. Twilight replied. Just so I'm sure I've got this whole thing worked out, 'cause I'm totally confused, that's a bad guy, right? She pointed at the approaching form of Führer King Bradley. He actually looked a lot like Sombra. Yep. Twilight nodded. Right, Silver repeated. Thanks for the science lessons, by the way. She lifted her forehooves and clapped them on the ground, making a quick alchemical circle. A pair of silver rods appeared next to one another on the long slope towards ground level, growing out of the ground. Where'd you get the silver? Twilight asked, interested. This palace had coins in it, Silver said by way of explanation. Emphasis on had. A gold lozenge extruded from the ground next to her. Okay, here we go. She lifted the lozenge bodily onto the upper end of the pair of rods, then clapped her hooves on the ground again just as King Bradley reached the base of the ramp. Electricity sparked, the air tore, and when the sound died away there was a huge crater field at the base of the ramp. Of King Bradley there was no sign. Silver's smile was surprisingly feral. "Take that." Twilight nodded. "Cool. Railgun, et. Yab." It split into lots of bits as it left the rails, so he couldn't dodge. Silver blushed slightly. I may have paid a little more attention to the lessons about silver, and I remembered the thing about it having great conductivity. "The best," Twilight agreed. Father slammed Silver into the ground, making her head spin, and then smashed her artificial foreleg. Silver focused woozily, and realized what was going on. Hohenheim was about to sacrifice herself, and she didn't have an option of how to get out. "Twilight," she croaked. "Now, please." A bolt of lambent force the size of a tree hit Father and sent him slamming against the far wall. "Good work, by the way," Twilight whispered, helping her up. "You made it as far as the original did. I feel so special." Silver winced, moving her stump. "Ow, that does not feel right." Twilight faced Father, her device building up another spell. "I'll handle him from now on." "You've done enough." "More than enough." Silver smiled weakly. // 47.6. Gilda looked down at the filly. "You seriously want to do the Gryphon way? Now?" "Sure," Silver said, looking a little nervous. "But, just so you know, I'm expecting you to tie both your forelegs behind your back and wire your beak shut first." "I'm not stupid." "Hat." Gilda paced in a slow circle around Silver, taking in the change in posture. "Looks like you're living up to that cutie mark after all." Silver blinked, thrown. "Pardon." "Look, if there's one thing the loops teach you ponies, it's that those tattoos you have on your butts are seriously hard to interpret." "So, a silver spoon." Gilda tapped the underside of her beak. "First meaning, you were born into money and privilege. Second meaning, it's still the most mundane of eating utensils, everyone uses them, so even if yours is silver it's just a more valuable version of a normal kind of thing. Third meaning, there's a heart in the design, so you do have a good heart in there. Fourth meaning, silver is antiseptic, so it cures illnesses. Fifth meaning, silver tarnishes, but yours is mirror bright so you keep yourself in shape." The Gryphon scratched. "So, yeah. There's probably more, but that's enough to be getting on with." Silver nodded. "I see. I think." Gilda cricked her neck. "Now, where's that rope?" Seeing Silver looking apprehensive, she grinned. "No getting out of it now." "You did say so, come on already. I'm looking forward to a good fight." / 47.7, Master Weaver. "Okay, something's funky this loop." Twilight looked up from her book. "Oh hello Nyx." She stepped over to her daughter and winced slightly, pulling various branches and leaves out of her mane. I awoke in the Everfree." The filly shivered, old memories surfacing for a moment before she got a hold of herself. "Apparently I'd been hovering around the castle for the past 1,000 years, and Luna's not there. I don't understand." Her mother finished up with her mane and moved on to the collection of tangled knots in her tail. I wonder." She cast a scrying spell, looking up at the moon. "Oh. Oh. Yeah, you're not replacing Nightmare Moon this time round. You're the Shadow Pony." What now?" "A fragment of Nightmare Moon that wasn't banished." Twilight rolled her eyes. "Local Ponyville myth, but the non-looping AJ certainly believes it, even though she never bothered to tell me before the whole Tree of Harmony thing." Nyx snorted. "Fragment of Nightmare Moon. That's real original." She tilted her head. "Hey, does this mean that Luna's still going to be Nightmare Moon at the celebration? Far as I can tell. Ah. All clean. The librarian smiled slyly. You have an idea, don't you? Oh yeah. The night will last 4. How dare you? Every pony turned toward the entrance, their shocked gazes watching a wrathful miniature Nightmare Moon trot in. Your night? Your night. I have been working for 1,000 years to get these ponies to stay up and watch the stars, to enjoy the night as much as the day if not more so, to give those few who enjoyed the sky without a sun equal footing with Celestia's lapdogs, and you. She shot up, shoving her face into that of her larger counterpart. You want to waltz right in and claim it as your own. Up with this, I shall not put. Nightmare Moon blinked, completely stunned at this new development. She blinked again, shaking her head and glaring back at the filly with equal rage. Fool that you are! I am the true princess of the night, and you are nothing more than some upstart. Can you lay claim to the moon? Nay. 'Tis mine, and no power shall wrest it from me. Power! The filly snorted, landing on the balcony's railing. Oh, I see. Power. Just because you're bigger than me and have more magic, you get to boss me around, is that it? Never mind that you did absolutely nothing when you were trapped on your precious rock while poor little shadow pony. There was a distinctly southern gasp from somewhere in the crowd. Worked hoof and feather and horn just to be heard, let alone create interest in astronomy, or make the night home to romance, or give ponies a place to party after the sun had set. The filly whirled on the flabbergasted Nightmare Moon. No, all that blood, sweat, and tears are nothing compared to just having enough blind strength to bully your way into anything. There are places. The mare bit her lips. There are places where ponies celebrate while the moon is raised. What, you haven't heard of nightclubs? The shadow pony rolled her eyes. No, right, locked up for 1,000 years. Yeah, there are. Nightmare Moon glanced at the crowd of ponies, noting that they no longer cowered in fear but instead peered on in interest. We suppose we may have been hasty in forcing our claim. We will grant thou the moon, if... She quickly added. If thou canst defeat us at some form of challenge. The shadow pony considered the offer. There is a form of duel often practiced in nightclubs which would make us fairly even. Would you agree to that? As long as it was explained to us before hoof. Agreed. The filly smirked and whipped out a pair of sunglasses, snapping them onto her face. Rap battle it is then. You. She pointed to a white unicorn with an electric blue mane. You've got 30 minutes to catch Big Black here up to speed. I'll even hold off preparing tracks while you do it. / 47.8, Detective Ethan Redfield. Full free press. Tyrant loses mind. I am a space alien, King Sombra, former tyrannical overlord of the Crystal Empire, stated as he addressed the gathered crystal ponies from a ruined hole in the Cerstal Palace. Within the past year, Sombra was believed dead upon the activation of the ancient magical artifact, the Crystal Heart. However, those notions were put to rest when the tyrant appeared once again in the Crystal Empire yesterday and laid siege to the city by causing it to rain black crystals. Countless buildings were damaged by the rampage before he was captured by Prince Shining Armor, who, along with Princess Mi Amor Cadenza, is the current ruler of the Crystal Empire. He attempted to escape later the same day, which resulted in the hole he made his speech. Fortunately, during both incidents, no pony was hurt. The royal princesses arrived today after receiving a request for assistance from Princess Cadenza and were in the process of judging whether Sombra, who had been acting strangely for a known tyrant, was fit to stand trial for his many crimes. Sources within the palace stated that Sombra made another escape in order to address his people. During his speech, he would go on to say, Sombra is dead, long live the new Sombra. I'm seizing control of this body and walking it around like a meat puppet, as an extraterrestrial ghost from another dimension possessing the body of an evil, sorcerous unicorn emperor, I promise you that the tyranny you once knew is at an end. Near the end of the speech, Sombra was recaptured by Prince Armor, but not before he made a bold statement: "From now on, I, ruler of the Crystal Empire and history's greatest monster, shall be the best king who ever lived." It is unclear when Sombra's trial will take place or whether he is fit to be tried at all. For the full version of the speech, see page 10. Twilight brought her hooves to her face and sighed. Discord, who had seen the article first and thought Twilight might enjoy it, chuckled, "So, who do you think replaced Sombra? And why was he replaced so late in the game?" Twilight muttered, "Who knows? Sometimes, I think the loops have an odd sense of humor. Now I got to go bail out history's greatest monster. / 47.9, Master Weaver. These bats have got to go." Applejack shouted. Fluttershy narrowed her eyes. "You would evict my children?" The farmer blinked. I am sorry, wah." Without warning, the Pegasus's wings exploded, feathers flying everywhere as they warped into fleshy-fingered wings. A snarl revealed a pair of long fangs in her mouth. Her mane and tail crinkled and curled unnaturally as her cutie mark shifted into 3 pink bats. "I am the Lady of Shadows and Blood," Fluttershy cried, glaring at Applejack with her now red eyes. "All who feast in the night are under my reign. And you seek to throw them out. I am sorry. Maybe we can cut a deal or something." Instantly Fluttershy was back to normal. "Oh, that would be nice. I guess I can see your viewpoint, I just don't want the bats hurt. So I stored the Flutterbat DNA using my druidic magic, mixed in the teensiest amount of flying hatred and..." Twilight sighed. "I'm sorry, but that was just a tad too much. We don't want another Eternal Twilight and Macintosh, do we?" Fluttershy cringed. "Right. Won't do it again." A shadow trailed from the upper balcony as Fluttershy left the library. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation with Twilight." The Pegasus blushed. What exactly do you think of it?" The shadow smiled sympathetically, fangs gleaming in the lantern light. "Don't worry, I understand the urge. Us vampires have to stay together." "Changelings aren't really vampires," Fluttershy pointed out. "You suck apples," Chrysalis countered. "Not exactly vital fluids or etheric essences. Me on the other hoof." She licked her lips. "Well, let's just say I don't want you to throw this out." After a moment, Fluttershy smiled slyly. "I'll see what I can do." A holy hoof shot out. "Bloodsucker pride, sister. Bloodsucker pride." Fluttershy hoof bumped Chrysalis. "Even though neither of us actually suck blood. I drain order from the world, can I be part of this little club?" Discord asked suddenly. Chrysalis waggled her hoof. "We're more focused on individuals than on groups. Aren't you going to ask where I came from?" "No." / 47.10, Master Weaver. "You know, when I made this competition I didn't really expect you to enter," Twilight pointed out. "When you made this competition I was a random looper who was constantly drunk." Berry Punch paused. "Actually, about that. How soon do you think Ruby Pinch will start looping?" "I honestly don't know. You just started looping for no reason." The librarian put a gentle hoof on her shoulder. "I don't know if I can completely understand since Nyx is a special case, but you have my deepest sympathies." Berry sipped her drink and sighed. "I'm not sure I want her to start looping, actually. I mean, for me it would be good, but for her, well, she'd have to go through what we're going through." She sighed. "I guess I'll just content myself with being a good mother for her non-looping self." The two of them sat in silence. On the plus side, Twilight noted eventually, this version thinks you're really cool. And you managed to neutralize Nightmare Moon with a single drink. She shook her head. I saw you brew the thing and I still can't believe you only used equestrian ingredients. The bartending mare grinned. Wait till you see what I've got planned for Discord. / 47.11, Richardson and Master Weaver. Twilight, I am telling you, there is something seriously wrong with Meh Orchard this loop. Twilight sighed, setting her book down. Ever since the loops had expanded to include the vampire fruit bats, something weird was always going on at the orchards. Of course, they had never found anything, and Fluttershy swore up and down that she couldn't find anything with any of her senses, including her druidic ones. Applejack, there is a perfectly rational explanation for whatever is going on. Rational meh flank. Applejack swung her rump around to wriggle her cutie marks beneath Twilight's muzzle rather uncomfortably close. With the poor, shriveled apples, in sight, she could see two tiny fangholes punctured into Applejack's hide on both sides, which still dripped with cider. Whatever it was sucked the juice right out of Meh cutie mark. Okay, so whatever it is pink irrational. Right. A disturbing thought danced across Twilight's mind. And Dash likes to joke about how she replaced her blood with Zap apple cider a couple of thousand loops ago. Applejack's eyes widened with a speed rivaling the ejecta shell of a supernova as her pupils constricted to pinprick singularities of horrified realization. Whatever got Meh cutie marks is gonna get her. Let's what the chlorophyll is that noise. Ah! An almighty crash rocked the library as Dash plowed through an upstairs window at roughly the speed of sound and proceed to halfway embed herself in the floor. You guys have to help me. She wants to suck my blood. Tiny scrabbles of hooves clip-clattered against the upstairs balcony disturbingly lightly as the light coming through the window was filtered through a pair of yellow membranes. Silhouetted against the rising sun, the figure was partially shrouded by her own shadow as Twilight squinted into the light. The gleam of a pair of fangs glistened within a salivating maw beneath a pair of dully glowing blue eyes. Fluffy ears twitched at the strangled noises of inarticulate frustration coming from Twilight as her horn glowed with arcane energy. Then the sun was forcibly moved through the skies as Twilight ascended herself, revealing Fluttershy standing there with a disturbingly familiar new set of favored mutations. Having the graces to look ashamed of herself, Fluttershy squeakily smiled as she folded her leathery wings and hopped down to the ground floor. Her breath hitched as she saw how Dash had buried herself in the floor. Oh! Oh my goodness! Oh, Rainbow Dash, are you all right? Wah! Don't let her suck my blood. I don't want to hang upside down and speak in a Romanian accent. Dash thrashed as she tried to dig through the floorboards the rest of the way and make for the planet's core. Oh Dashy! Fluttershy caressed Dash's wings and sides with a hoof as she started to pull her free. Saliva dripped from her fangs as she nuzzled Dash disturbingly. I only want to show you how much I've learned about the glories of freshly squeezed cider. Fluttershy, this has gone on long enough. What I said. Fluttershy let go of Dash, leaving her stuck in the floor. Oh, whatever do you mean, Twilight? Intervention. Twilight's magic aura grabbed Fluttershy, bodily lifting her from the ground and carting her through the air to the door. And I know just who to do it. Applejack started to follow Fluttershy and Twilight, stopping at the door as an urge struck her. She turned back to Dash, who was still wriggling in place, perfectly helpless and juicy. Why Dash, I never thought I'd get a chance like this. AJ? Could you get Twilight to get me out of here? I really don't want to ascend and all just to get out of her floor. Twilight ain't here no more, meh little Zap Apple. Uh-oh. For that matter, neither is Applejack. Call me. Two fangs slid into place in Applejack's mouth, dripping as they considered the mobile Zap Apple before her. Apple juicer. I'm outta here. Dash ascended in a flash of light, teleporting herself screaming to where the Crystal Empire would show up in a year or two. Ah, sucks. Me and Meh Big Mouth. Applejack frowned as she pondered it over. That Fluttershy out of all the ponies in the world had come up with a crazy idea for a prank was certainly an odd one. She bunched her hindquarters as she felt the painful tingles from the bites still. Her druidic friend had developed a ritual to pass along her whole vampire of the fruit's nature for a loop, some adaptation of a family of spells about bite of the were something, but she was starting to wonder if the shy gal had a kinky side to her. Did she really have to bite both of her cutie marks? Applejack shook her head, feeling funny as her ears popped into their temporary new forms and as her cutie mark temporarily morphed into a trio of apple-colored bats. I am never saying bite me around that gal again. Hooey. Well, time to scare the cotton candy out of Pinky and the magic out of Twilight. Asterisk so, main fluttersney, why do you feel ze need to grow batvings and suck blood from apples? Fluttershy raised an eyebrow at her psychologist. Pinky, when exactly did you find time to get a degree in therapy? Non. The pink pony bopped her friend's nose with her note-taking pencil. This is not about me and my needs. This is about you. She twitched her big bushy mustache and peered over her thick-rimmed glasses. Now then, Vi. The Pegasus sighed, leaning back into the couch. Well, I suppose it all comes back to kindness really. See, it's easy to be polite, and generosity is something that's fairly simple to teach. But with kindness, you have to have empathy. You have to understand the person you're being kind to, help them on something like their level. So, I guess I sometimes get carried away in understanding and let myself become other. On ze batzing, that started as unkindness and became addiction. Maybe just a tad, Fluttershy admitted. I guess I'll try to hold back a bit, from now on. But seriously, Pinky, how did you get a therapy degree? Pinky merely smiled. Let me have some mystery, Fluttersney. / 47.12, fan of most everything. Twilight lay in a sunny clearing in, some forest. It was another Earth loop, but the adventuring races were the setting's usual humanoids, and she wasn't one of them. Instead, she was a local unicorn, leonine tail, cloven hooves, the whole package. Oh, and none of the trappings of civilization whatsoever. It wasn't so bad. With the perspective of a loop anchor, Twilight saw it as something like a camping trip. In any case, she had more than enough stored in her subspace pocket to keep herself entertained for years, from books to experiments to supplies for making magical items. And she could always find a party of adventurers to tag along with should the mood strike her. This was Earth, after all, they were everywhere. She was scribing a scroll for what this world's mages would probably call transmute into orange when the sound of wing beats came from above. Twilight looked up, tried to shade her eyes with a forehoof, and winced as her anatomy reminded her that it wasn't nearly as flexible as normal. Sorry, Twi. These bodies kinda suck. The voice settled the matters of what and who. It's okay, Dash. Twilight stood as her friend shed altitude. What's up? Dash sighed as she descended. What, aside from these dumb horse bodies and us being the only ponies in the loop? It's certainly a novel experience, Rainbow, and you know how hard those are to come by. You should try to enjoy it. And is that an egg? Yeah, that's why I came. Dash did in fact have a roughly watermelon-sized egg cradled in her front legs, its shell just as blue. She set it down on the ground with surprising care. I kinda. She trailed off into inaudible, almost Fluttershy-esque muttering. Twilight's mind had already formed a hypothesis. She pulled a PADD out of subspace, grabbed it with telekinesis, and called up the 3.5 monster manual. She confirmed her guess in moments, and immediately wished that she hadn't. Mother of mahogany. You. Dash sneered. Yeah. Like I said, these bodies suck. I didn't even do anything. It's unfertilized. I am so glad it's just you and me this loop. Can we please keep this between us? Pinky, Gilda, Rarity, none of em would ever let me live this down. And I do not want to try and explain this to Scoot-a-loo. Of course, dash. Twilight retrieved some bubble wrap, wrapped the egg, and whisked it into her subspace pocket. She'd put more thorough protections on it after the visit. Your secret is safe with me. Dash sagged with relief. Thanks, Twi. You're a real pal. And, take care of it, okay? Of course. Twilight silently scrapped the more invasive experiments that could be performed on a single cell of that size. Well, unless she acquired other Pegasus eggs. Surely her friend wasn't the only member of the species that laid infertile eggs. The same environmental triggers would have applied to all local populations. Wish I could just ascend, Dash sighed. That'd probably take care of this. That shook Twilight out of her thoughts of specimen acquisition. I'm sorry, Rainbow, but we've been over this. We don't know how the local gods would react. They might see it as a challenge. But that's a bunch of horse apples. Dash flared her wings. We're not that powerful, and it's not like I'm gonna grab the sun or moon or anything. Twilight couldn't really shrug, so she tossed her mane. Well, find a cleric and take it up with them. The Pegasus glared and pawed at the sod. Maybe I will. I am not forcing another one of those monstrosities out of me. Wait, that isn't what I... Dash flapped off. Thanks again, Twilight. The unicorn groaned. Why do I even speak? / 47.13, Grinnerts. And I must reiterate, the sandwich was clearly labeled with my name. And, furthermore... Oh, I do hate it when the loop ends mid-conversation. Looking around her, Luna saw grey dust and rock. A quick glance upward confirmed that she was on the moon staring down at Equestria below. Checking the strength of the seal upon her prison revealed she had a few hours left before release. What to do? Write messages in the stars? No. Come bearing tidings of interplanetary goodwill? Another time. A comedy routine? Already done. Arrive already purified? Perhaps. And perhaps I should try to find what sister sees in that little hobby of hers. Celestia stood within her quarters attempting to prepare herself for the battle to come. To fight her younger sister was not something Celestia was looking forward to, yet for the safety of their subjects it must be done. Even should she fall, Twilight would. Twilight must find the elements. Even as the Sun Princess thought on things to come, she felt the seal break. Time had run out. Royal Guard's ponies called out from the castle walls as something appeared out from the light of the moon. Though to Celestia's ears they were less fearful and more disbelieving. Turning towards the balcony, she caught sight of what had so surprised the watch. Cowabunga! Is that a surfboard? / 47.14, Oracle Mask. Twilight looked toward her 5 friends over the pile of books and papers they'd been working on. All 6 of them were alicorns, it only seemed appropriate for the kind of game they were planning. So we're agreed on the rules? She asked. She got 4 nods and 1 excited bounce. Okay. Now we just need to make the map and the pieces, and we can start playing. Sister, what do you make of this? Celestia took the paper Luna handed her via telekinesis and studied it. Some pony is painting large lines over parts of Equestria. Celestia said, A&D. The Gryphon Lands, and everywhere else. There were pictures with the reports, showing a suspiciously familiar pink blur wielding a comically oversized paintbrush and bucket of paint. Right, this rock looks good, Applejack said, looking over a nice reddish mountain not far from Appaloosa. Looking a little like she was tap dancing, Applejack bent a large chunk out and methodically shaped it until it resembled one of the royal guards. There were a few differences, like the funny plume on top of the statue's head, the apple motif on the armor, and the being made of solid rock thing. It was also the size of Town Hall in Ponyville. 1 down, 30 summit to go. Asterisk rarity, 3 of my armies in the Everfree Forest would like to attack your armies of Canterlot, if you don't mind, Fluttershy said, holding up 3 red dice. Rarity beamed, lifting up 2 white dice. Bring it on. The denizens of Canterlot watched in awe as the distant forms of 3 giant pony soldiers made of trees and 2 giant pony soldiers made of ice, and wearing fabulous capes of solidified water, did battle over the giant line of paint that had appeared the other day. Asterisk Pinky, we don't even have an Australia, how did you even do that? Rainbow Dash groaned as the party pony's giant candy cane wielding marshmallow soldiers rampaged all over her own giant thunderbolt using cloud armies from out of nowhere. Dashy, hiding in Australia until you steamroll the competition is tradition. Silly. Pinkie Pie giggled. Asterisk 5. Applejack declared triumphantly. Twilight pointed to her die. 6, oh, crab apples. That's my last army. A mile away, the last of Applejack's stone soldiers crumbled as Twilight's magical construct soldier blasted it. Hooray! Now it's between me, Twilight, and Rarity. Pinkie exclaimed. Asterisk the rest of the main 6 watched politely as Rarity was crowned Queen of the World by a very confused Celestia and Luna. You know, that was pretty fun, Rainbow Dash said. Whose turn is it to pick the next board game? Mine, Applejack said, looking over their list of games and crossing Risk off it. Let's see, what's left. / 47.15, Detective Ethan Redfield. The Great Equestrian Foam Sword War, Part 2. Grey wisps of smoke escaped the train as it ejected the travelers from Ponyville into Canterlot. Mayor Mare stared at the golden towers that rose into the air. A strange mix of joy and relief filled her heart at seeing the heart of Equestria once again. Even with the sun below the mountains, magical beacons and candlelight made the city gleam like the sun. The next couple days would hold numerous shopping trips and dining like the princesses at some of their finest restaurants as the mayor and her friends and family arrived. Then, they would board a dirigible for a trip around the world in 90 days. These travel plans swirled through the mayor's head as she made her way to a well-kept but modest hotel. Celestia and Luna spent the previous day giving suggestions about where to travel and what to do abroad. It was the vacation of a lifetime and anyone would be excited. Looking at her now, though, no one could tell she was excited, as she looked from her room window to where Ponyville rested a few hours away. Although new to the loops, she had spent about 20 loops as mayor of Ponyville, 1 in Metropolis and 1 in Townsville. She couldn't even remember her last vacation, worried as she was that without her there, her town/city would fall into ruin. But with Twilight's promise to protect Ponyville, she knew everything would turn out all right. Asterisk Big Mac's bar. So, how many of Miss Lulamon's laboratories has she gone through trying to make a foam sword grenade? Big Mac asked as he slid another cup of cider her way. With a single slurp, the cider was gone instantly. Twilight slammed her head down and muttered through the counter. Mac tilted his head and said, "Sorry, Miss Sparkle, I could a sworn you said 5. The element of magic nodded her head. The anchor had decided to sit the war out, determined to make sure Ponyville was standing when the mayor returned. She resolved to keep a close eye on Trixie in the month leading up to the war. Several seconds of silence passed as Mac looked over Trixie's scroll again. "Say, did ya even agree to the terms a this competition?" Twilight lifted her head up. She Pinky promised that if I followed through with its terms, she'd never use explosives of any kind for the next 10 loops we're together in. I'm curious to see how long she lasts. Mac chuckled to himself. He held no interest in the war beyond keeping every pony safe. Applebloom and all the Crusaders, however, were back at the farm setting up a new geofront running from the furthest corner of Ponyville to the edge of Everfree. Asterisk Sweet Apple Acres geofront. Applebloom brought down the lever as several pieces of high-tech machinery whirled around her. The sound of several high-caliber rounds being fired over at the firing range echoed across the Gia front. She looked to where Sweetie Belle was testing weapons modifications. How are the runes coming for the .408 calories rounds? Another crack echoed down the massive Gia front, accompanied by a burst of white light. Her radio squawked back, "It's working. I've tested several magazines already, no errors. We'll need to have Twilight inspect them first, but it should prove effective from a great distance. Should work with the missiles and other caliber rounds as well." Bloom nodded to herself as new plans formed in her head. She'd have Twilight check her design, then a prototype machine that churned out thousands of rounds and foam swords, and then if testing works, we can shift into mass production. With that set up, she made for Nix and Scoot's project. They probably had all kinds of modifications she wanted to make to their vehicles, which would consume quite a bit of her other time. After that, she would have to work on her own last resort project. What he heard, though, weren't terms he had heard in the equestrian military, but they still sounded something out of a strategy meeting during his times in the army. Their loops in futuristic and human militaries lead to terms like fixed weapon emplacements and long-distance firing positions being passed around in anticipation of the war ahead. He resolved to take them on a vacation loop after the war ended. "So, what have you heard from the other loopers?" Twilight lifted his head. "Rainbow is practicing some high-speed fight maneuvers over the ocean." Somewhere over the ocean. A flash of rainbow split the ocean. A moment later, a glowing rainbow-maned pony appeared over land on one side of the watery expanse. She looked down at the stopwatch in her hand. 10 seconds to cross the ocean. "I can be faster than this," she thought to herself, and disappeared with a rainbow explosion of energy. Gilda, upon learning about the competition, returned to the Gryphon Empire to make preparations of some sort. The capital of the Gryphon Empire. The Ebony Palace, standing at the top of the deepest canyon on the planet, was home to the mighty Gryphon Emperor, Ipnet. At its center, the Iron Throne rested at the top of several stairs. One female Gryphon stood at the bottom of the stairs, surrounded by 2 squads of 10 Gryphon soldiers that lay bleeding on the ground. The Emperor and his aides resided at the top, looking down upon Gilda as she ascended the stairs. "Emperor Ipnet, by right of succession, I, Gilda Griselda, daughter of Duchess Tyra Griselda and 17th in line to the imperial throne, have come to end your reign and establish myself as Empress of the Gryphon Empire." Ipnet was no amateur, though. He gazed upon her, noting a confidence he had never seen in his niece before. "As honor dictates, I must accept, but implore you to back down. This will be to the death. Or has your time amongst the ponies at your flight camp made you weak?" Gilda lifted her claw, stealing her emotions. "No. A wise creature told me that only the truly strong can afford kindness, and I will make you submit before I have to kill you. Come at me, uncle." With that, the 2 Gryphons leapt at each other. Lemon rushes around this time, so Fluttershy's going to participate with him on a team. The sound of gears churning, wood crunching, and ponies screaming could be heard from the basement of Sugar Cube Corner, where Mac had set up this time around to be more easily accessible to the loopers. Twilight buried her face in her hooves. "Oh, Chlorophyll, I think that's her now." Ponyville. The sound of severe rumbling could be heard throughout Ponyville as ponies ran in terror of the approaching metal monster. The house-sized tank slammed into Mayor Trixie's City Hall, demolishing it in a spray of wood and glass. A butterscotch Pegasus with a foam sword hung around her neck lifted her head out of the massive tank and looked over the destruction. She focused on several ponies running away, then shouted down to Lemon, "Could you drive us closer, please?" Lemon looked up at his adopted mother. "You want to hit them with your sword, little mother?" Fluttershy's eyes widened in horror. "What? No. I just don't think they'll hear the sound of my apologies over the rumble of the engines from this far away." A pink light flashed as Pinky appeared out of nowhere. "Hey Fluttershy. Looks like you're having fun, but maybe a bit too much fun." "Don't worry, I'll take you somewhere where you can have all the fun you want. With another burst of pink light, the 3 ponies and the massive tank teleport into Everfree Forest. After Twilight rebuilt City Hall, reassured the non-looping ponies that the world wasn't coming to an end and got Lemon Rush and Fluttershy to promise never to use their tank in Ponyville for driving practice, she reappeared in Mac's bar, seeming more disheveled than before. Mac gestured for her to continue. That's about it. Rarity has locked herself in Carousel Boutique muttering something about magical artifact modifications. The only one else I've heard from is my BBBFF. Shiny's going to use this to test some military formations he's developed over the loops. She chuckled to herself, something interesting about this loop, apparently Shiny has a different lieutenant this time around. His name's Candy Cane and his appearance has made all the difference in the guard. Their skills are shaper than he's ever seen and morale is high. He was the looper who came in yesterday evening with the black military hat, red bill shadowing his eyes. Mac chuckled, didn't seem tall like you and Pinky when y'all tried introducing yourselves. Couldn't get away fast enough. Twilight's ears flattened against her head, you think he saw one of my earlier pranks? Mac shrugged, who knows, but I'm sure y'all win him over sooner or later. You did me, after all. Have you seen any of the others? No. The rest are keeping low profiles. Celestia and Luna are setting up GA fronts all over Equestria and preparing to evacuate a good portion of the country. I'm not sure if they know things will get out of hand, or if they have something big planned. She gestured for another cider and lifted it to her mouth before muttering, I hope it's the former. / 47.16, Master Weaver. So, Shining gave Chrysalis an awkward glance as he finished choosing his new skills. You and Trixie. The Queen of Changelings dropped out of the half-meditative state she was in, shrugging. It was a surprise for us as well, do you not approve? I'm not in any position to pass judgment over you two, Shining quickly explained. This is going to sound really bad, actually, so I want to be clear I'm not accusing you of anything but. I am not just using her as a food source. Chrysalis's clipped tone made Shining armor win CE. No, that's not what I was going to ask. It's just. He sighed. I guess I can see how you'd know if she loves you, but how do you know that you love her? A moment of silence filled the dungeon chamber. You know, maybe that was a bit too far. It's all right if you don't want to talk about. No. Chrysalis sighed. No, I guess. I just do. I mean, back when I was with, the other you, She waved a hoof vaguely. I felt equal. Even. Focused on myself and. Trixie helps me to focus. To be, really. It's not exactly the same but I'm pretty sure it's close enough. Trust me, it is, Cadance stated with a smile. I've been around you too long enough to know that. The Changeling Queen jumped. I thought you were still selecting skills. Nat, I just like to meditate sometimes. Easy way to spy on ponies, and from spying comes manipulations comes happy couples. Shining armor bit his lip. I'm not entirely sure that's ethical, dear. / 47.17. What? The buck? Is this? Twilight prodded it, producing a kind of PFFF sound. Pinky grinned. I think it's a fluffy pony. I will call it Fluffle. No, Twilight shook her head. I'm not getting involved. If this is a loop peculiarity, then you can handle it. Meanwhile, I've got a project to do before Trixie next loops. She gave Pinky a pointed look. That means that you don't use my main room as a lounge. Twilight gave Pinky a glare. Okay, explain. I don't know what went wrong. Pinky protested. I thought maybe Chrysalis would like to meet Fluffle, and she vanished into the fur. Do you mean the looping Chrysalis? Pinky shook her head. Right. Twilight rubbed her head. I can feel a headache coming on. Okay, this is your fault, you solve this. Asterisk Pinky, this is not solved. I like to think of it as solved, Pinky countered. I mean, look. They love her. They're terrified half to death that she'll engulf them like she did Chrysalis. Twilight pointed at the cringing changelings surrounding the fluffy pony, who now had a makeshift crown glued to her head. Pinky shrugged. Potato, potato. / 47.18, Nickus. Applebloom got to Diamond Tiara during the lunch recess. Subtle ways of arranging their desks and other specific but not odd responses to Miss Cheerilee had signaled they both were awake. Neither of the other future Crusaders were, but another classmate was missing. Any sign of where Silver Spoon is? Applebloom asked. The pair had staged a mane-pulling fight at the start of the school year, that seemed to settle differences, so no Pony thought them eating lunch together too strange. Diamond Tiara shook her head, no. I managed a peek in the City Hall records. Her dad is there, but he left town. According to Twilight Sparkle, he's got degrees in hippopology, archaeology, and ancient Mesopotamian culture. Left for field work, I guess. Her mom's here, but she's married someone else. Applebloom sighed, it happens DT. You'll catch up to her some loop. Tiara snorted, if she's forgiven me by then hayseed. It just hurt the way she looked at me when I explained the loops to her, you know. Applebloom hoofed over one of her apple turnovers. Granny was always big on comfort food for ponies with the blues. Not really, but I'll be sure to ask if Bob starts looping. Something by the schoolhouse steps caught her eye. A pony so tall Miss Cheerilee was on the top while the newcomer was on the ground, and still was over her head. Is she Saddle Arabian? Diamond perked up, yes. This is interesting. Maybe a guest for class. Applebloom shrugged as she saw Miss Cheerilee tug the rope for the school bell. Guess we'll find out soon enough. As soon as the class shuffled in, Miss Cheerilee poked her head out of the door to speak to some pony. Class, we are getting a new student today. Come in and introduce yourself, dear. The pony that came in was nearly as tall as Miss Cheerilee herself, and most of that height in the legs. She had a patterned saddle Arabian pole cap, along with a matching blanket on her back and sash running from her withers around to her chest. It was the coat color and the familiar spoon cutie mark that caused Diamond Tiara's heart to skip. Hello, my name, well, would be Silver Spoon in equestrian. Let's just go with that to avoid mangling it, please. A sea of waving hooves, all but Applebloom's and Diamond Tiara's, suddenly sprung up and the tall filly sighed. Let me guess, she started pointing at random and sprouting out answers before any pony could speak. Yes, I am about your age, I just got mother's height. Mother insisted I dress up for my first day. The veil dance is a bunch of road apples made up by a randy stallion, so no, I don't know it. Cheerilee stepped in to bring the class under control. I'm sure you can ask her, after class. Respectfully. She gave a baleful glare, and Fluttershy had been giving her lessons. Still not a patch on the Pegasus, but good enough for now. There is an empty desk over by Applebloom and Diamond Tiara. The two that didn't swamp you in questions right out of the gate. She gave the class another look. I'm sure you'll make friends soon enough. Silver nodded. As we say in the Sands. There are no strangers, merely old friends who have yet to meet again. Diamond Tiara's heart stopped. Silver Spoon was looking right at her as she said that. A problem rapidly became apparent, however. Miss Cheerilee looked dismayed at the mismatch of a filly the size of most grown mares trying to fit into one of her desks. I'm sorry. I'll see about getting one you can fit into. Silver Spoon pulled out a piece of cloth-wrapped chalk from under her blanket. I can handle this. Before any pony could ask, or stop her, she rapidly drew a strangely inscribed circle on the seat, then pressed her forehooves to it. With a flash of light the chair morphed, stretching out and up. The result was larger, but lighter looking, and Silver Spoon settled into it. I can change it back after class if you like. Cheerily reined in her boggling and shook her head. If it is a stable change, the end of the year will be fine. At the filly's nod, she turned back to her lesson plan, trying to pull the gawking colts and filly's attention back to the blackboard. She made a mental note to ask Twilight Sparkle to look at the magic, just to be certain. The end of school saw the usual crush of foals let free rushing the door. But instead of rushing to individual destinations, there was a clustering around a particularly tall and leggy member of their herd. Diamond Tiara and Apple Bloom shared a look and started helping her cut out as she fielded questions. "Ah, come on. Give her some room. Not like she's gonna run off tomorrow." Apple Bloom found it a lot like herding, dealing with her unawake classmates. "Right, you lot. Let her breathe. I'm sure you can talk to her some more at Pinkie Pie's party." Diamond Tiara was less physical, but just as intimidating. Silver Spoon started. "She's throwing me a party." Apple Bloom nodded, "Of course. Pinkie Pie's awake, so she has to be plotting to throw you a party." Her classmates nodded, a given of Ponyville life, completely missing the emphasis. Diamond Tiara looked at Apple Bloom as their classmates finally started breaking up a bit. "Sugar Cube Corner." Apple Bloom nodded, "Sugar Cube Corner. Come on, Silver Spoon, we'll show you the way. Otherwise we might wind up looping looking for you while you try to get there." Silver Spoon nodded, and they managed to get through town to the corner with relatively few interruptions. Though she was having issues adjusting to most adults being at eye level for her. Silver Spoon found herself seated in the diplomatic corner booth with the costumed Pinkie walking guard as the three shared a chocolate boat to Tartarus sundae. A dish that seems big enough to save a filly from a flood. Well, accepting Spoon's current form. She hesitantly tested the waters. "So, who is awake now?" Apple Bloom spoke up first. "Well, us three. None of the other crusaders, and no Nix, so that's it for our age. Looks like just Pinkie and Twilight, of course, from the bearers. Don't know if the princesses are awake or not." Diamond Tiara looked at her one-time friend. "So, how is this loop treating you?" Silver shrugged. "Being half saddle Arabian isn't the weirdest one yet. At least this time I have enough equestrian to keep my cutie mark. Being Gilda's niece was definitely weird though." Apple Bloom looked confused. "How does a pony get to be a griffin's niece?" Silver smirked back. "Who says I was a pony that time? It's weird, I seem to spend as much time as something else as a pony, or at least pony-like." The three paused to digest that, and consume more of the boat. Diamond Tiara moved next. "So was one of those other times where you learned whatever you did with the desk?" Silver shook her head. "No, I was pure pony for that fused loop. Well, excepting 2 metal legs, thanks Celestia, I awoke after losing them. Hooking up replacements was bad enough." Apple Bloom looked uncomfortable. Silver? The princesses kinda asked we loopers not swear by them. We try to use trees instead." Silver looked at the farm filly strangely. "Really? I wondered why you guys did that." She caught Diamond Tiara's nod and shrugged. "Anyway, what I did was a method of rearranging matter. The particular school I used there was called alchemy. It fits better in equestria than its cousin, alchemy." Apple Bloom looked at Diamond Tiara then sighed. Looks like she'd have to be the heavy this time. DT was apparently worried about hurting her friendship even worse. "Are you sure you want to blow your cover this early in the loop?" Silver Spoon smiled. "What, with alchemy? How much do you know about Saddle Arabia and its magic?" Diamond Tiara got it first, and giggled. "So you figure to pass it off as some exotic magic from Saddle Arabia?" Silver Spoon nodded, and tapped her flank. "I apparently got this helping Daddy on a dig. Finding and restoring lost knowledge of how ponies used to live their lives. And we just discovered," Silver Spoon waved her forehooves in the air. Diamond Tiara wound up chorusing with her lost secrets of saddle Arabian magic. Both fillies stopped in embarrassment. Apple Bloom looked at one then the other as the awkward moment stretched. Well, I need the little filly's room. Don't eat this all while I am gone. She trotted off. Diamond Tiara looked at her friend. Silver? Are we? Silver Spoon's gaze seemed to pass over her. The fused loop I was in was a place called Ames Tries. It could be a rather nasty place, particularly the stuff the people me and Twilight were replacing had to deal with. But it taught me a lot about what you will do for families, and friends. So, I think I'm getting there. The taller filly shrugged, having the Princess of Friendship be your little sister probably helps. Silver Spoon transmuted the surface of the table to block the epic spit take that comment got out of Diamond Tiara.